Hello and welcome to week 5 of the Line Survivor preview strategy session, whatever you want to call this. Steven, the good news is if you've been watching this, you're still alive. So that is good. And you're probably returning because you are, in fact, still alive. Listen, there's been some madness, of course, over the first 4 weeks of the season. We know the big Survivor contest over at Circa is now down to about 1,200 people. From 6,100 through the first 4 weeks. I'm sure your Survivor pool is crazy as well. But Steven, listen, we dodged a couple of bullets. We talked last week, and I think we talked through it very well. We were like, hey, listen, really want to be on the Lions, but the Lions not at full strength. We need the Lions to be able to outscore their teams because their defense is so bad. We just need them to outscore bad teams. And of course, without their starting running back, their wide receiver 1 and their wide receiver 2, they just were unable to do that last week. So we said we probably are just going to default to the chalk, which is the Packers. It was a sweat, but the sweat got home.
Hey, man, if you're going to win a Survivor pool, you're going to have a couple of opponents get to the 50-yard line in overtime and still somehow try and pull that thing out, man. But we did it. We survive in advance, just like March Madness. Hopefully you guys saw the comment. If you were watching the video later in the week, we were talking a little bit about the Lions that were maybe making our top 3. But if anything ever changes in the injury report after we record this on Tuesdays, I'm going into the YouTube comments on that video to let you know any changes I have in my strategy. So I did that with the Lions last week. Hopefully you guys saw that and got off of the Lions, and we move forward here with, I think, another really good game theory spot here this week, Matt.
So some options for you guys. Now, we do have bigger favorites this week. And so we've got the Packers again. If you didn't use them last week, the Packers are 8.5 point favorites over the Giants. Of course, the Giants don't know who's even going to be playing quarterback for them. Apparently brought in Jake Fromm to work out on Tuesday. So that leads me to believe that Daniel Jones is probably not going to be able to go for them. So it's either going to be Davis Webb or maybe they just run Wildcat or something with Saquon. But
whoever they bring in, he better have his passport because they got to go to London.
So if you are if you are still alive and didn't use the Packers last week, they're big 8.5 point favorites. The Bills, massive 14 point favorites over the Steelers this week as the Steelers have decided to move to the rookie Kenny Pickett after just 4 games. The Vikings are 7 point favorites over the Bears. The Bears looking like one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in all the NFL. The Saints is at least an interesting one if you haven't already used them. Of course, I did already use them in week 1, but 5.5 point favorites might get to 6 before this is all said and done. I know the Saints are going to be a popular side this week with how bad that Seattle defense is. Go down a little further. The Bucs are 8.5 to 9 point favorites over the Falcons. Kind of the same deal again. Falcons offense can move the ball. Defense, absolute garbage. So 8.5, 9 if out there for the Bucs right now. And that one, the Jags, 7.5 point favorites over the Texans this week. Of course, Jags didn't get it done this past week, but I think at least a somewhat respectable effort outside of all of the turnovers.
Encouraging.
Yes, 49ers are 6.5 point road favorites over the Panthers, who are getting very loud calls for their coach and or quarterback or everyone to be launched into the sun. So we shall see how that all plays out. There's a 5.5 on the Eagles on the road at the Cardinals. I will right off the bat say that is an avoid for me at all cost. And then the Chiefs are 7 point to 7.5 point. We've actually seen a couple of hooks pop up now. 7 to 7.5 point home favorites over the Raiders on Monday night. So, Steven, many more options this week than last week, and it kind of depends on which teams you have used so far and what your strategy and risk tolerance is moving forward.
For sure. I mean, we have 6 teams with an implied win probability of 74% or higher, including the biggest favorite of the season so far in the Buffalo Bills with minus 900 on the money line, around 86% on the implied probability to win. but I'm not going to be picking the Buffalo Bills this week. For starters, they are going to be one of the 3 most popular choices, it appears. If you look at some of the projections and the projected ownership, they're not as popular as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Falcons and the Green Bay Packers against the Giants, but they still look like they're going to be about the 3rd most popular choice. And also, as we always discuss on Survivor, Matt, future value with the Buffalo Bills. First of all,
yes,
this is not the best version of the Buffalo Bills. That's the one reason I don't want to take them, even though they're a 14-point favorite. The second reason is games still on the schedule against the New York Jets, the Detroit Lions, the Patriots, who don't look like themselves anymore, and another game against the Jets. So that's one I want to have in my back pocket with so many other great choices this week.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's one of those deals for this Bills team. There's just multiple reasons, I think, to not play them. You know, again, if you're in one of the other reasons, again, if you are in Circa, the Bills are one of the teams that play on Thanksgiving. You only have 6 choices on Thanksgiving, so that's at least one of the teams you would be eliminating. So again, the people that are watching us out here that are in Circa, you don't want to play the Bills this week. And 2, there's just too many other juicy options, right? I mean, it's like one of those things where you look at this and, you know, we'll talk through our power rankings here of how we would go about all this, but there are some teams where I feel like it's either a unbelievably awesome spot to use them in this year, or 2, there is an unbelievably great opponent to use them against. And so I think we have multiple of those options this week, which is why I just wouldn't be wasting the Bills. And honestly, if we look at this, Steven, the Steelers are just going to be a team that we can kind of target almost moving forward now that they've moved to the rookie quarterback. And also this defense is kind of overrated. Without TJ Watt out there, they're just pretty average at best. And so, so like for me, like that's a team we can just pick on with lesser teams. And I'm certainly not going to like waste the Bills on them. And so we kind of come to some of these other spots here where, you know, the Bucs come into play. If you didn't use the Packers, of course, the Packers come into play. The Chiefs, if you wanted to roll the dice like that, I'm not going to go that direction. The Jags and then the Vikings. So starting with you, what is your top play of the week?
I'm between 2, and I know you have the same one as me. So I'm going to save that one for you. I'll let you mention the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to mention the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
And it is a short week. It is on the road. But man alive, they are playing the worst quarterback in the National Football League. Baker Mayfield, across the advanced statistics, is dead last in pretty much anything when it comes to completion percentage over expectation, success rate, EPA per attempt. They're a mess. They have some talent with McCaffrey and DJ Moore, but they can't get organized, whether it's the quarterback or the coaching staff. And now Baker Mayfield is one of the worst quarterbacks against pressure and is facing the team that has, in my opinion, the best defense in the league, has the best at getting pressure with only sending 4 and dropping 7. It's the most brutal matchup that the Panthers offense could face this week in the San Francisco 49ers. And even if we don't get good Jimmy G, I'm not sure they're going to need it to get past the Panthers here. We've already seen this line move from 5 up towards 6.5. Wouldn't surprise me if it closes 7 this week. So the 49ers outside the top 3 most popular picks for Survivor this week in terms of the projections, looking at even less than 3% right now in the ESPN projections, at 2% ownership on the Niners. And if you look at their future value, Matt, really not a lot of spots you'd be confident in playing them because they still have games against the AFC West in their own division in the NFC West as well. So you'd be waiting to use the Niners for a very, very long time if you don't use them this week.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the Falcons next week would be an option. So there is that, but right?
The Falcons aren't a full fade to me at this point. Like I thought they would be coming into the season, though. You know, they're spunky enough to maybe pull some upsets here and there with the weapons that they have, and Mariota's looked okay. So they're not the fade that the Steelers are, for example, that you mentioned. So I'd feel less confident using the Niners against the Falcons than I would be against the Carolina Panthers.
If you're talking, but as Steven mentioned, if you're talking future value and you wouldn't want to play them next week where they're playing the Falcons, you're really only going to look at the 49ers again in week 15 and 16, where it's Seattle and Washington. So again, just kind of keep that in mind, that if you don't play them one of the next 2 weeks, then that's one of the teams you better be around for the long haul, because you're not going to play them again until week 15 or 16. Yeah, I mean, my number one choice here is Jacksonville this week, and mainly because there's several different factors. Like I said, I am looking at an opponent here in Houston where, you know, in all of our power ratings, they're in the bottom 3 in every single one of the power ratings of our, you know, that we put together as a site, Steven. And then further, I mean, look, we're looking at a Jacksonville team that I'm not even really so much worried about how many points the offense is going to be able to put on the board, because this defense is pretty legit. Like, I actually think this is a top 10, 12 defense, if not upside of a top 5 defense by the time this is all said and done. And so now I look at Houston, and look, we tried hard to make Davis Mills a thing. He's not a thing. He's not any good. Like, and look, there's just not a lot of talent around him. So it's very hard when you don't have a ton of talent yourself and there's not a lot of talent around you, right? So Davis Mills is just not any good. And so I kind of look, this defense has been got gashed on the ground. And so you got James Robinson, you got ATN. I don't think, and with that defense, just seems like the perfect week to use Jacksonville, because again, they're playing really well. They're like the healthiest team in the NFL, by the way, I might add. Like they have no major injuries on this team whatsoever, and that can't be said in the future, right? And so, like, we at least know heading into this week, we're getting about the healthiest version of this team that you're possibly going to get. And then again, if you start to look forward, when are we going to use them again? Probably not, despite the fact how bad the Colts are. Not going to look at them next week against the Colts. There's a weird London game in there. Then they go to, you know, Raiders and Chiefs and Baltimore and all that. So, I mean, for me, it's kind of like this is the week, or you might end up like not using them at all. So it's kind of like number one with a bullet for me on Jacksonville this week.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of 1A and 1B for me with the Jags and the 49ers. I had a tough time determining which I liked more. I do agree with you that the next time I'd probably be comfortable playing the Jaguars is probably in December, week 13 against the Lions, or maybe even week 16 and 17 against the Jets or the Texans again. So I do think that if you have your eye on the end game, I do think the Jaguars are the one I'd rather keep over the 49ers because of just how tough the Niners schedule is. And also the fact that the Niners, for whatever reason, under Kyle Shanahan, have had like the most injuries of anybody, and they've already had a ton of key injuries, including down to their third string left tackle. Arik Armstead can't seem to get back on the field with plantar fasciitis. So the 49ers are a team I'm less confident in will be healthy at the end of the year, considering their track history and also some of the injuries they already have. So that's why I'm using them this week, but I can't make a good argument for you with the Jaguars to not take them this week for sure. And I have 2 entries left in the 2 pools I'm in, and I'm probably going to put one on the Jags and one on the 49ers.
Yeah, and for me, look, I get it with the Chiefs, and I understand why they might end up being somewhat popular, because you kind of look at their stretch, right? And as awesome as they have looked so far, and as good as the Chiefs are, you ain't playing them against Buffalo. You ain't playing them against San Francisco. You're not going to feel the most comfortable in the world just because Tennessee is just like one of those slow-paced, run-heavy teams. Like, could they just drain the clock and whatever? Then it's Jacksonville, who by week 10, who knows? Maybe they're real plucky by week 10. And then it's the Chargers in week 11, and you have to assume they're going to be much, much healthier in week 11 than they are right now. So I get if you want to play the Chiefs this week, strictly because there's not like a glaring spot to play the Chiefs again for a hot minute. The only problem, I think comparatively though, Jags and Chiefs, where we're saying there's not really a good spot to play the Jags moving forward, at least the Chiefs are a good team. If you get put in a bind and you have to play the Chiefs in a week where you're not all that comfortable, Steven, at least you're playing one of the top 3 teams in the NFL, right? I mean, like, if you get stuck in a spot where you're playing one that you're not super comfortable with, if you're going to war with the Chiefs, I'd much rather go to war with the Chiefs than with the Jags. So that's kind of why the Jags jumped the Chiefs this week for me.
I agree with you. The Chiefs are going to be favored in every game for the rest of the season here, especially, the only question was at the Chargers, but now they're banged up. So I think the Chiefs are going to be the favorite no matter what week you're in. So that's a nice little bullet to have in your back pocket to use whenever you need it. And in a pinch, you're at least getting a team that's projected to win that week. And you can't say that about any other team in the league except for maybe the Eagles.
And I think the other one that we certainly need to touch on here is the Bucs. And look, this Bucs unit, for me, the reason I'm not playing them this week, Steven, the reason I'm holding on to them is because it can't be worse for this Bucs team. Like, all of these injuries, all this stuff going on, the receivers, all this whatever, like, in my opinion, it can only get better. This offensive line that has been a sieve, like can they not figure out some sort of blocking scheme that's a little bit better moving forward for their talent level and all that? Like, that's kind of the deal with me. It's like, I feel like I would be buying in on the Bucs right now at their lowest point, where I would rather play them a little bit later when I feel like again, they can't be worse. So I would only be buying in at either the same level further down the line or hopefully at a higher level in the Bucs, which is why I would rather just kind of save them and hope that they figure some stuff out on that offensive line.
For sure. And again, the Falcons are frisky. They're much improved from last year. So it's not entirely crazy that they stubbed their toe after having a big game on Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs. I expect them to be motivated after losing, but still, with the Bucs, two reasons why I'm not playing them. Number one, more attractive games in the next 2 weeks here against the Steelers and the Carolina Panthers. So I'd much rather use them there. And secondly, game theory, Matt. They're one of the two most popular picks this week, it appears, with the Green Bay Packers. By the ESPN projections here, more than half of the remaining field will either be on the Bucs or the Packers, and then we're over 60% if you throw in the Buffalo Bills as well.
Yeah. And if you're in Circa, again, just like throwing this strategy out there, like the Bucs are likely the team that you're going to feel most comfortable playing on Christmas Day when the Bucs play the Cardinals. So just another thing to keep in mind, again, you have to pick from one of 6 teams. And right now it's Packers, Dolphins, Broncos, Rams, Bucs, Cardinals. You were probably thinking you were going to play the Rams against the Broncos, but I don't know if you're going to be super confident, in that pick. So you're probably playing the Bucs against the Cardinals on Christmas Day if you make it that far. So again, just another reason for me not to play the Bucs. The last team would be the Vikings, Steven. Vikings against the Bears. I'm never going to tell anyone don't play a team against the Bears. I would play just about any team in the league against the Bears. I have no problem if you want to play the Vikings against the Bears. My only thing would be from a standpoint of, hey, listen, you can get away with holding. They have games against Washington left. They have games against the Jets left. They have Detroit, obviously, because they're in. And then if you happen to make it all the way to the end, and I know this is like getting way ahead of ourselves here, but they get the Bears in week 18. So, I mean, like you actually would get the Vikings against the worst team in the NFL in week 18. So for me, I don't have a problem with playing the Vikings. Me personally, just for my strategy, I'm going to hold on to them. But my power rankings, pretty easy for me this week. It would be Jags, Vikings, Chiefs, strictly because of, again, future value and where I think that these teams could be further down the line. So again, Jags are like number one with a bullet for me. And then it would go Vikings, Chiefs. I know you have the 49ers in there. I just like to hold out hope I'm going to get a better version of the 49ers down the line. But you're right. This team has been injury prone. It's been snake bitten. So maybe that's not the case. Maybe I won't get a better version of the 49ers down the line, but that's kind of my hope.
Yeah, I feel you. I don't blame your top three. There's a lot of really good choices this week, right? You could really have a pretty solid top 5 here this week. But my top 3 would be the Jaguars and the 49ers. Hard to pick between those two. So a solid top 2, then a drop off in tier, and then I'd probably go. Just based on game theory, I'd probably go with the Bills since they're 14%, and the Bucs and the Bucs and the Packers are well over 20% picked, it looks like, this week. So those would be my top 2, solid top 2, though, with Jags and 49ers.
If you want,
I take it back. I put Vikings third. There you go.
Yes,
Vikings third.
And listen, if you're trying to win this thing, you're holding on to the Eagles. The Eagles are way too valuable down the line. The Rams, good luck. If you want to play the Rams against Dallas, go ahead. I sure as hell am not doing that after the version of the Rams that we saw the other night. And then with the Saints, there's just a lot of injury concerns with the Saints. Now, if you knew you were getting 100% healthy Saints against Seattle, I would say, hey, fine, like you could roll with that. But But again, like I just, lots of injury concerns there on the Saints side of things. So again, just a little bit too risky for me this week. I like our top three pretty solid. My number 4 would be the 49ers, Steven. So like it's in your top three. They would be my solid number 4.
Teams just in different order here.
It would be my solid number 4. And I think of those 4 options, guys, that's the best way to go this week. Honestly, you're going to want to save the Bills. You're going to want to save the Bucs for when the Bucs are more healthy. They can't be less healthy, so they can only be more healthy. So I mean, like again, you'd be buying in on the Bucs at the same level, not at a worse level, and so I think you're going to want to hold on to them as well. So I really do like the kind of hierarchy we have this week. And guys, if you're here with us again next week, that means we're still rocking and rolling in this thing, baby. So let's keep this train going for
few less sweats, man. Few less sweats than that overtime last week.
Few less sweats would be great. Full article over at thelines.com. Of course, everything we do absolutely free. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. We do appreciate all the support. We are growing so fast, and it's because of all you guys out there. And we're bribing you along the way, because if you're a subscriber, you get in all these cool contests where we're giving away swag, we're giving away gift cards, we're giving away cash, we're giving away all that stuff. So bonuses as well for your support. Do appreciate it. If you want to follow Steven at Steven Anders1, you want to follow me at Matt Brown M2. Good luck, Survivor Week 5.